Welcome to Recovering from Religion Stories Australia. This is a podcast series where we conduct long-form interviews with people who have left religion to hear about their journey both in and out of religious belief. Recovering from Religion, or RFR, is a global non-profit organization that offers hope, healing, and support to those who've been harmed by religion. In this podcast series, we occasionally touch on highly sensitive topics, so listener discretion is advised. Also, any opinions or views expressed on the podcast are those of individuals and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoint of RFR in general. We hope you enjoy the program. Hello everyone, greetings from Perth in Western Australia. Welcome back to another episode of RFR Stories. My name is Sean, I'm one of your hosts for today, and I'm joined by Jonathan. How are you, Jonathan?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well.
Good to have you here. And today we have a very special interview. We're very excited to get started. We are joined by Mark. Mark is an ex-Jehovah's Witness, and he's traveled all the way from Melbourne to chat with us today. We're very privileged to have you here. Thanks for joining us, Mark.
You're welcome.
We're so excited because we've both met you through the RFR online, the Zoom support groups that we used to do during the COVID times. And so we've sort of seen you, known you for 3 or 4 years
It's been
now,
a fair while, yeah.
but never in the flesh.
I will just make a correction. I'm from Brisbane.
There we go.
Do you usually live in Melbourne or?
No.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I feel embarrassed by that, but we should just leave that anyway.
Sean, you just need to fact check better. You got to brush up. We'll leave all this in.
Just Sean being embarrassed is a good way to start the podcast. It's very authentic.
It's halfway through, you might start to pick up from Brisbane and going, hang on, wasn't it from Melbourne?
Wasn't it Mel? Yeah.
Excellent.
We do check these things. No, thank you for joining us and thank you for traveling here. We're very excited to chat with you about your story. So as we tend to traditionally start with, we start right at the beginning of people's stories. So we start with childhood, we start with family of origin and religion of origin. So you've told us that you are an ex-Jehovah's Witness. So yeah, in a very free form, open format way, whatever comes to mind, just tell us a bit about your childhood and early childhood growing up as a Jehovah's Witness.
Okay, well, what I will say right from the outset is that it wasn't pleasant and it wasn't fun at all. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and I had a father who was very controlled. He was a control freak. He was an elder in the congregation, but he is a person that had two personalities. One for when we went to the Kingdom Hall, and one at home. And a lot of people didn't see what went on in the home and what I had to grow up in. So being a control freak, he's virtually the person that you would say, if he said something, how high should I jump? You just jumped at his commands and whatever. Religion-wise, he made you know everything about the religion. Just what you didn't know about the religion, you got into trouble for. So things like you would have to quote scriptures off by heart, miss one word, and you'd be in trouble for it. So what I usually tell people is I lived under a father that created a lot of fear. So there was that side of the issue with fear. Then there was going to the meetings and hearing the story about Armageddon. You're going to die at Armageddon. This is something that you would hear all the time. So now we have fear at home, fear of the religion. And then as I grew up into my teenage years, I realised I was gay. And this was a real, if you want to tip the apple cart upside down, this is what did it. Because, again, now I just lived in this threefold fear. For myself, fear for not pleasing my father, and fear for not pleasing Jehovah. So, it wasn't a very happy time. I went through a lot of stress. Stress is not even the word.
And then anxiety, I'd assume.
Yes, every day was what's going to happen today. What's going to be wrong about today. I never enjoyed life. Realising that I was gay complicated matters so much, especially when I realised that there was no place for gay people in the religion. And so you just sit there and go, well, what do I do now? I have to please Jehovah. I have to please my parents. Where do I fit into this big picture? So, it wasn't a pleasant time.
It sounds like even before you kind of discovered your sexuality, even like when you were a little kid, it sounds like you were constantly, what's the word I'm looking for? Like sort of almost like under threat, like this quiz from your father was going to be like, quick, name this scripture. You don't remember it? What's wrong with you?
Yep.
You should know this.
Yep. You're spot on. And what I didn't say is because of his personality, he was also very violent. Ooh. So if you didn't know that scripture, I would cop a belting.
Yeah.
A belting is not even a nice word for it because it was a bashing. It was a bashing. There would be times I would go to school with bruises in my stomach, bruises on my back, strap marks on my legs for simply not knowing scriptures. We used to have this drill, family study time at home where he'd play out these scenarios. So you get this letter where you have to go off to war. What would you do? And so you'd have this whole scenario prepared when we used to go out preaching. So if this person says to you, blah, 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 you had to have your spiel ready to go. And if you mucked it up at the door, we weren't even out their gate. And he was on to me left, right and centre about how I mucked it up. It was just so much pressure. It was like living under a rock.
Yeah.
You know, just this, I couldn't get that rock off the top of me. Day in, day out, and day in and day out.
Like every second was like this sort of fight for survival of trying to get the right answer at the right time.
And when you're under that much pressure, you're under stress, anxiety, fear. And so I was frightened to even answer the question, because I was not answering the question. I was thinking about, what am I going to muck up?
Yeah.
Because in 10 minutes' time, I'm going to be getting a bashing. One thing that a lot of people know about me is that my father once threw an axe at me.
Oh my!
Just out of his sheer anger, and that wasn't even anything to do with religion. That was just something that happened at home. He got violent, and he just threw an axe at me. That was actually a very life-defining moment for me. And I'll talk about that a bit later and pick me up if I forget about it.
Oh, I'll remember the axe.
It was a very life-defining moment. The other thing I remember vividly, and I was only talking to my brother about this the other day, is the time that he got really angry in one of his spiritual moments and threw me through a wall, and literally threw me through the wall. I was standing in the lounge room. He picked me up, threw me against the wall, and I ended up in the kitchen. Put a great big hole through the wall, ended up in the kitchen.
Wow, that's terrifying.
And another life-defining moment was one of the brothers came and visited the home and saw the hole in the wall. And said, "Oh, what happened?" As anyone curious would say.
Yeah.
And Dad's immediate answer was, "We had a little bit of an accident." When you're a kid in the religion, getting bombarded with things about love your children. You know, you have an elder that gets on the platform and teaches all of these things. And that was his answer. He couldn't even be honest. He was a hypocrite. Another life-defining moment for me where I just learnt so much of how I was going to conduct my future life out of this horrible, horrible, messy situation that I was in. Not pleasant at all. I do come with a lot of baggage.
Yep.
And it gets worse in some instances once I've left home. But yeah, that's how I grew up in my childhood. For me, going to school was almost like, dare I say it, being in heaven.
Yeah.
Because I was away from the religion temporarily.
Yep.
I was certainly away from my father, and it gave me a little bit of peace and solitude in life.
Yeah.
The downfall was, if we went to school and someone had a birthday, no, we couldn't do that, and I'd have to have my spiel ready for when we had the birthday, or Christmas came along and the class had to make Christmas decorations, and so it wasn't a total safe area.
No.
I was just stepping from the oil into the fat sort of thing, but at least it gave me some time away from my father where I had a little bit of peace for myself.
Yeah, it's like a bit of an escape.
Yes, absolutely.
Even though the religion still tries to follow you everywhere.
Yeah. And I guess the horrifying thing for me is that I've been out of the religion for 40 years, and in the last couple of years I've spoken to a lot of different people, and people have told me about their violent parents. And this is a religion that, well, they preach love. That's their defining thing, God is love, and it's far from it. It's far from it from what they teach and what we actually have to live through in our lives.
So like the congregation, the other elders, they did not figure out, or if they did know, they didn't do anything about like your family.
Yes,
The abuse.
there's two ways to answer that question. Yes, they did know about it. It was always left when you're an elder, you sort out your own family. They never ever intervened. One thing I will always never forgive my mother for, which is whether it's right or wrong, it's just the way I am, is that she never intervened. You know, she could have gone and said, this is what's happening in our home. It has to stop. But no, she didn't do that because, you know, women aren't supposed to speak up and they just have to be in subjection to their husbands. So whatever their husband does, be it at the kid being victimised,
Yeah.
that's fine. You know, all our relatives, they knew firsthand what was going on in our home. And they're all Jehovah's Witnesses. None of them did anything.
They all failed to protect you as a
And
young
yes,
child.
yes. You know, and I look around today and we talk about the laws that we have in place today. And you mentioned the keyword protection. I had none of that. None of that. And yeah, it stirs up a lot of emotion.
Yeah. Did you get like a sense that like your family was different to what was happening in other families in the congregation, or were you not, or was this just normal to you kind of thing?
It was normal. It was just normal because that was my home. I never saw in my whole life as Jehovah's Witness any other family undergoing what I was. You would see parents discipline their children, but never did I see a strap mark, the evidence of strap marks on their legs, the bruises in the ribs and the back and everything, where it gets nasty, where he would just push me to the floor and just kick me to death because I didn't know a scripture off by heart or whatever it was, you know. And it's so hypocritical.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy. What's the word?
Hypocritical.
Thank you. Hypocritical. Yes.
Yeah. It sounds like well, I don't know. Like, obviously I don't know him. It sounds like the religion was like this excuse just to kind of take out his temper, you know? Maybe. Oh, actually, I don't know though.
Looking back at it now, we'll just digress a little bit just so that you know his side of the story.
Yeah.
He was previously a Catholic and he met a lady, and as a result, I was born. Some stage through that period, he was also studying. He must have been studying. And this is what I don't know, and I've never been able to find out exactly. But he eventually became a Jehovah's Witness.
Can I pause this just for a second? Because some of our audience aren't ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. When you say studying, you mean with the Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yes. My
Because
apologies.
people might think that means university.
No. So he was studying with the Jehovah's
Quite
Witnesses.
the opposite, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And eventually became a Jehovah's Witness. So I actually have two mothers, and this is where the story digresses massively away. But to try and really keep it simple, I have been through psychologists and everything, and what they had told me is that clearly he regretted his mistake, but unfortunately I was a constant reminder of his mistake, day in and day out. And the way he dealt with that was just take it out on me. Not the right way to handle a situation. He could have gone to therapy and all that sort of stuff, but he chose not to. He also had a difficult background he lived in Egypt.
Yeah.
You know, that whole Mediterranean personality, which can be, I won't go there, volatile. But, you know, put all of those things in that basket, you can understand a little bit about his personality. In saying that, I make no excuses.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, you do not get up on the platform and say to the whole congregation, read from the Bible, and I don't remember it word for word, but parents, love your children. And I'm sitting there going, children?
Yeah,
when's the last time you told me you loved me?
Yeah.
And one thing I will say, my father never, ever, ever told me he loved me.
Wow. Not once.
Not once. For a religion that preaches love,
Yeah.
you know, it's their main theme.
Yeah.
He never, ever, ever once said, Mark, I love you.
And like none of the other elders, like, even if they were like he never got removed. They knew he was beating his son, and he never got pulled up for it, saying, hey, listen, you're doing the wrong thing here.
Yep. I can't say hand on heart that he never got pulled up for it,
but
because I don't know whether they provided any counselling for him or anything like that.
Fair.
I was a kid. I don't know what goes on behind the background. All I could see was what happens to me personally as an individual growing up in that home. So whether he did cop counselling about that, I have no idea. But
he was still an elder.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where I sit there and go,
He never
what
got
a
removed.
Hypocrite. What
Yeah.
a hypocrite.
Yeah. So like, how would you describe like the religion to like someone who maybe who's not been a Jehovah's Witness and doesn't sort of know Jehovah's Witness beliefs very well, just sort of roughly?
In one word, it's a cult. I'm sorry, it's a cult. Looking back at it now, it's a cult that bases things on love.
Yes.
But it's a false love.
Yeah. What's the lifestyle like? Is it like you go to mass? What like?
When I was in it, and I do hear that things have changed a bit over the years. But when I was in it, we would have. I will start from Sunday. We would go to our meetings on Sunday.
Yep.
Sorry, preaching Sunday morning, meetings on Sunday afternoon or Sunday night, depending on what congregation you were with. Monday night was family study night, which I will tell you, we used to call it family warfare night, because neighbours down 3 doors down would go, yep, they're talking the Bible again, because he would just lose it halfway through the study.
God.
And everyone, that was his personality. Everyone knew it. Just going back quickly about the congregation, he was the sort of person that would walk into the congregation and all of a sudden it would be quiet. It would be still. He stops the room, literally. He didn't like laughter.
People picked up on that kind of threatening kind of energy.
He didn't like laughter. He liked control.
Wow.
So if someone was laughing, he would walk in the room, it would stop.
Yeah, wow.
I'm sorry, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but anyway, yeah.
What came after family warfare night, or just in general, like sort of the so you've got like so it was a busy lifestyle is the main thing.
Yeah, I guess I went through my younger years through all of this violence and everything. It continued, and then one day Dad said to me, "When are you going to get baptised?" So I had to make up an answer.
Oh, can I clarify something just for the sake of the chronology? So you've described the physical abuse that you suffered at the hands of your dad. For example, the wall incident, like about what age were you at that time?
I would have been somewhere between 12 and 14.
Okay, quite young.
Quite young.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
There was just so much pressure, the eldest son.
Yeah. And then roughly, actually, the other thing that you mentioned already as well, roughly when did you sort of start to realize, I'm gay kind of thing?
Yes, that probably, when I really think long and hard about it, it was probably about the age of 12.
Yeah.
The problem is, growing up in the religion, it's not talked about. Well, the best way I can describe it, and I don't even know whether it does describe it, is I would just have this feeling. I would just look and go, he's nice.
Yeah.
Right, without even knowing what it is.
Yep.
It was, he's nice.
Yeah.
And then we'd go to another congregation or go to an assembly or something, and you'd see different people and go, he's nice.
Yeah.
I never knew the word homosexual. I never knew the word gay. It just wasn't talked about.
Yeah.
It was a very young age. I know I was in high school.
Yep.
Boys at school.
Oh, yeah.
That sort of thing I knew. And then in my day, the word poofter was thrown around as the word gay.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden that word started to gel with me going, the more I heard them joke about it and what they were joking about, that's me.
Right. Yeah.
I can't go and talk to my parents about that.
And it's a confusing time for like most kids when they hit puberty around about 12, that age. It's like, as you say, like you're transitioning from this period of like, this is a nice person to, this is a nice person. And like you're trying to understand what these feelings are. So it's a confusing time at the best of times.
Absolutely.
Least of all when you've got like no frame of reference for what's sort of going on. And it's a thing you can't talk to your parents about.
A question I do get asked a lot is, why wouldn't you go and talk to your parents about it? Well, that was pretty obvious to me that I just couldn't.
You weren't safe.
Instant bashing for whatever. There is no way that he was going to even try and understand, accept, all those sorts of things. So I was in my trapped little prison where I couldn't say anything. I'll bring in prayer in all of this because something you used to always hear at the meetings was, pray to God and things will get so much better. Throw your burden on God. Well, I will tell you right here and now, there are 1,001 other Jehovah's Witnesses out there that are gay. and they'll all tell you the same story. We prayed and we prayed and we prayed. Jehovah, please make me straight. Please make me straight. It will be so much easier and so much better if you make me straight. I can deal with life so much better. Please take it away. Night after night after night after night. Consequently, I don't have any time for prayer these days because those answers never, ever, ever came.
Yeah.
Nothing ever happens.
What I will lead up to is the day Dad just straight out asked me, when was I going to get baptised? Knowing I was gay, I did not want to get baptised. I knew it would have been the biggest waste of time. But such was the pressure to please Dad, not cop another belting or bashing, as I call it. I got baptised, went through all of the 80 questions that they put you through as the part of that process, did all the right things and got baptised. The day I got baptised, my father was an attendant. For the first time I ever actually saw him smile at me that I was getting baptised. For some reason, he was so happy. Whether it was a persona for everyone else to see my sons getting baptised, I don't know. But what I will tell you, and this is dead set true, after I got baptised, I walked back into the room to get changed, and I just sat in the corner and cried. I cannot tell you how much I cried, and so much so that Dad had to come in and get me. And his first words were, "You must be so happy. You must be so happy. You must be so happy."
Oh.
Tears of joy.
And at that moment, what I wanted to tell him, but I couldn't. Yeah, so after all of these prayers the night before, look, I'm baptising my life and dedicating my life to you, God. Please make me straight tomorrow so that I don't have all of this anymore. It didn't change anything.
Yeah.
Didn't change a thing. So I went through the rest of my teenage years knowing I was gay. It didn't go away. Nothing I tried. No prayers were answered. So I was stuck with it. So between the ages of 16 to 18, I'd really had started to have enough. I talked about the life-defining moment when Dad threw the axe at me.
Yep.
I guess that was probably psychologically the day I started plotting to leave home.
Yep.
But I couldn't until I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that. So I had to stick it out till I was 18, as much as I hated it. 18 and 4 days, I ran away from home. I literally ran away from home. I packed a few things in the morning in my bag that I was taking to work and said, "Bye, Mum." And I had to keep it as if it was I was going to work, coming home at night. And I just didn't go home at night.
Yeah.
I have no idea what went through their head and all that sort of stuff. But I went through a period of, I just went and lived on my own, got myself a bit of accommodation. I did that for about 6 months, and then all of a sudden one day, Dad and Mum were at my front door.
Yeah.
And it was the lecture of, come back to Jehovah, come back to your family. It was all the pressure on, you've made a mistake, you're not pleasing Jehovah. Well, I fell for it all. And because you're so brainwashed, that's another word I would use. I was asked before about the religion. It's a brainwashing process that sticks with you forever and ever and ever until you decide to break the cycle. So because I was so brainwashed that I was not pleasing Jehovah and blah, 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 I went back home. Well, things were okay for about a month. It was quite calm. I thought, well, this is actually, for once in my life, as a family, this is not so bad. I mean, we still prayed as a family, we still ate, but at that stage now I was out working, so I wasn't at home under his control all day.
Was your dad trying to be on his best behaviour a little bit as well?
I don't know. I can't answer that, I'm sorry.
No, that's fair.
I don't know whether he was doing it for Mum's sake. There's a lot about my family I just simply don't know, and I can never answer.
That's fair. Also, I mean, at this point, you're an adult.
Yes.
So it's like, when someone's smaller than you, you can throw them through a wall and there are no physical repercussions on you. There comes a point where, like, you're a physical match for your father.
Yes.
So.
Yes, and I was out working, and I was paying board at that stage.
Yep.
In those days, I was giving Dad 2/3 of my pay.
Oh, that's
which
a lot.
I have since found out was a heck of a lot of money, but that's the way he was.
Yeah.
But anyway, this one day came and he just lost it. He just lost it because I said, no, I'm not going witnessing this morning. Why not? And then I had to come up with an excuse of why not. Just said I didn't want to. Well, that was probably the worst thing And he just lost it. He didn't even go out preaching that morning because he just bashed the hell out of me, and he was so wound up. He didn't even go preaching that morning. The whole preaching thing was cancelled because we didn't please Jehovah. But he felt quite justified not going out preaching and bashing the hell out of me. Can you see where the hypocrisy just keeps on coming back in all the time?
Absolutely.
So that was on a Saturday. I laid there Saturday night, all Sunday. I've done this once before. I'm going to run away again.
Yep.
And this time I will not be coming back. So Monday morning, clothes went into the bag.
Yes.
Bye, Mum. Off to work I went. And that is the last time I've been virtually in the family home, other than when I tried to get back in to get all my belongings. I got caught doing that, got the lecture and everything. I said, I'm not coming back. For once in my life, I stood on my own 2 feet and said, I'm 18 now. I can do whatever I like. I am not coming back. Let me into the house to get my belongings. Well, he refused to, but Mum rang me.
Yeah.
And said, if you come at this certain time when he's not at work, I will have everything packed for you and you can just collect your stuff.
Yep.
So that's what I did. And I have not been back in the family home since.
And that was still at age 18?
18, yes. It was I was probably closer to 19 by then.
Yeah. Wow.
So that sounds like a hell of a year, Mark.
It was one of the hell of the years that I've had in my life. But the good thing is I look at it positively now and go, I made the break. And I just said before, it was probably the first time in my whole life I stood on my own 2 feet, not controlled by God, not controlled by the Bible, not controlled by my father, not controlled by the religion. It was just me standing on my own 2 feet. And as it's turned out, it was a very valuable lesson. Once I got the taste, I can stand on my own 2 feet. That's another thing about the religion. You're not allowed to think for yourself.
Absolutely.
You're told everything, and all of a sudden, I can think for myself. So you can see the contrast that's happening. I'm going a very, very different path to where I had been brainwashed.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So, what happened next?
Okay.
You've run away the first time.
Yep.
They got you back in. And fool me once. You decide to run up this way the second time, and you don't go back.
Okay. Well, I never ever went back to the family home. I went out and lived on my own for a while, and I struggled. Long story short, there was a family in Broken Hill that knew my parents. They grew up with my mother. They actually said, Mark, we understand what's going on. Would you like to come and live with us? And at the time, that was this other family. They might actually be a nice family. I knew they were a nice family.
Yeah. Were they Jehovah's Witnesses? Yep.
Yes.
Cool.
Yep. So I agreed to do it.
Yep.
They welcomed me with open arms to go and live with them. I moved away from Brisbane at the time and went and lived in Broken Hill. Bad mistake.
Yep.
Because what it meant is I went back to the religion.
Yes.
And
yes, that ecosystem.
yes, because you've been so brainwashed. Well, okay, I'll go back to the religion, but it'll be under so much nicer circumstances now.
Because you start thinking, maybe all the problems were just with my particular family.
Absolutely.
Maybe the religion, when it's done properly, works completely well.
The big issue with Broken Hill is that I was discovering by then my sexuality well and truly.
Yep.
I won't go into detail about how I discovered my sexuality, but in simple terms, it was the night before I arrived in Broken Hill.
Yep.
So I was sitting in the Broken Hill congregation on the Sunday, thinking about what happened on the Saturday night, and there wasn't any comparison actually, because I was very happy with what happened. But this brainwashing. So long story short, with Broken Hill is that I sat very much on the fence with the religion because I was struggling with my sexuality.
Yeah.
And I would attend meetings and I would associate with the people that I shouldn't be associating with. But gee, they were gay. This was wonderful. I could actually relate to these people that I'd been in a prison for in my whole life.
Yeah.
And so that was a really, really good thing for me. But the elders in that congregation started playing Gestapo tactics with me.
Yep.
They would start following me where I was going. There were nights I would go to the club, to the local club, a place where Jehovah's Witnesses shouldn't go to because it had gambling and all that sort of stuff. I would just go for drinks. I shouldn't say I would just go for drinks because I did gamble. But, I would go into the venue mainly to have drinks and meet the people, the other gay people that I had started to know.
Was it it wasn't like a gay club, I'm guessing?
No, it was a club.
Yes,
it was the pokies.
Yeah.
But we're talking 40 odd years ago. It's like an RSL club.
Yes.
Where you've got your pokies and everything. That hasn't changed much. Very similar to that.
Yes.
Well, I would walk out of there and the elders would be sitting out in the car waiting for me to walk out hours later.
Like the KGB.
Yes.
Staking out in the car.
I cannot begin to tell you how much they just followed me. What was even worse is that they went to, because they knew where I was going, they went and knocked on their door and had a conversation about me.
Oh no!
So wait a minute. So they knocked on the door of
Dob on you.
To
gain information about me. They knew I was going there.
So you were going so you went to people's houses because you met people and that kind of thing, and then they would go and knock and to
gather information about me. There was a stage there at one stage that I had a nickname called Gilbert.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my name's Mark. So of course they went there and saying Mark comes here, and they didn't know who Mark was, and they're saying, well, we know he comes here. Da 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 da. Oh, Gilbert.
No way.
And I don't know where the Gilbert part came into it, but all of a sudden they confirmed, yes, I'd been going there. So then they realised that I was starting to mix with gay people. I got called into the elders meeting left, right and centre. I don't know how many elders meetings I sat through. And I really reached a point in my life when I thought, you know what, I've had a gutful of this, absolute gutful. And so I used to pull all the stunts under the sun. I rebelled so much against the elders. I had them running in spins because I didn't approve of the way they were following me just to gain information about me and what I was doing and where I was going. That was just so wrong.
That's a massive invasion of your privacy.
It is now. And had I been much wiser then, I probably could have taken some steps to stop them from doing it. But I was naive and we didn't have the laws like we have laws now.
Absolutely.
I had, again, back to the no protection whatsoever. I was just taking each day as it came.
Yep. And this is the environment you've been raised in. So it doesn't occur to you that this is not normal. It is not normal for the religious leaders of your religion to stake out follow you around and knock on the doors of your friends and ask after you. That is not normal.
Yep. And
not okay.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And if you ask any Jehovah's Witness that is going through the getting kicked out stage and what they do and the process they put people through, we'll all tell the same story in a similar but different way. They just think that they have this God-given power to totally control your life, to, that you must be in their religion and absolutely nothing else. So the minute you start saying, like I did, because I just had an absolute gutful, no, I don't want to be in the religion. Yeah. Then they start down this line, so you're not being repentant. Yeah. Because this is their whole thing, you have to be repentant. And no, I have prayed to God 1,050,000 times. Yeah. I prayed I sat up all night, the night before I got baptised. God, take this gay thing away from me. Yeah. I got baptised. It changed nothing. Yeah. I have fought it and I have fought it and I have fought it. And if you ask any ex-gay JW now, they will tell you the same story. We pray and we pray because that's the only answer. That's the answer the elders tell you. You haven't prayed hard enough. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I did. Yeah. I did. I begged God to stop all the bashings. I begged God to, give me some peace in life and whatever. I didn't deserve all of this. Nothing changed.
No one answered.
Do I believe in prayer now? No, I don't.
No. Absolutely.
No, I don't.
Can I just say, do these elders not have better things to do with their time?
No, because Jehovah appoints them. God appoints them as to play these... I use the word Gestapo. I don't know whether it's the right word.
No,
but
it's a good word. It's a good word. The whole secret agent following you around type thing. Yep. That's so inappropriate.
Yep.
Inappropriate.
I have heard the questions that females are asked, if they discovered they've had sex with another guy, which is another no-no in the congregation, and the questions that they have personally been asked. So I'm no different in many ways. This is Mark's story, the way I got treated.
Yes.
And it's no different to the female getting grilled about certain sexual positions and everything, which is none of their business.
Yeah. Did you get like the whole 20 questions and everything, really inappropriate stuff, or did they not want to ask you?
Oh, no,
They asked you that's so inappropriate. It's none of their business.
No, it's not.
It's none of their business.
And
it's
we know now it's not.
Yes.
At the time, you play the...
No,
I don't know anything different. Yes, this is what you're supposed to do because you're appointed by God.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I went through the whole 20 questions, the whole thing, and that was just because, I talked to the wrong elder about, having a problem with masturbation, and suddenly all the 20 questions, all this sort of stuff, and it's so inappropriate, the kind of questions they're asking.
Can I ask it for those of us who don't come from a Jehovah's Witness background, just summarize the 20 questions for us?
They want to know every intricate detail
of your sex life.
So, yes, thank you.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I mean every personal, intricate detail. I don't want to say on mic specific questions that they ask, unless you say it's okay for me to do that.
Oh, it's like I suppose. Well, you can confirm, but like basically from my experience and from what I've been told by people, basically, so we're at the point where they've figured out that Mark has, friends who are gay and that sort of thing. So maybe the question to be like, well, what have you done? And the most really like nitty gritty, really.
Did you ejaculate?
All this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Have you engaged in anal sex? Have you engaged in oral sex? Blah, 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 blah. All this sort of stuff, It's just like, you can't ask these questions.
But they do.
And they do. And you're in the situation where you get asked these questions. You're like, well, they're God's appointed. I'm supposed to like tell them the answer. Although it sounds like you were kind of wising up at this point. At least.
I was, because I was going through that rebellious stage. And in many ways, I did it just to put them on, make them feel uncomfortable. And
you kind of owned it a little bit?
I can't describe this any further. I reached a point in my life where I had just had an absolute gutful.
Yeah.
I've had all of this from my father for the last 14, 15, 16 years of my life.
Yeah.
And now I'm copying it from you guys.
Yeah.
I don't need this.
No.
I do. When I say you guys, I'm talking about the
No,
elders.
sure. We know exactly.
I don't know. I don't, I don't need this. I just got to a stage where I just showed the most unrepentant attitude possible until they disfellowshipped me, which means getting kicked out of the religion for all of the people that are not Jehovah's Witnesses. The night I got kicked out, I was at the hall listening to the announcement, and I cried. Because I didn't really realise the full impact of what that actually meant. Because in one stage, thank goodness, it's finally happened. I have now broken away from the religion.
But the Band-Aids come off a little bit.
Yes. They've given me the excuse now to just go and live my life without the religion. Thank you, elders. Thank you very much. What I never realised was the huge vacuum that immediately created. And I'll give you a quick example. That night, there was a really, really bad storm. I used to walk from home to the meetings, so it wasn't that far. But this was a bad storm, pouring rain, whatever. They all are driving home because the announcement's just been made that I've been kicked out of the religion. No one would stop and say, Mark, would you like a lift just to your home? Just let Mark walk in the pouring rain and whatever. There was this sort of little thing that happened, inhumane.
That's like the most, you could not have scheduled a more Hollywood kind of sequence of events where our protagonist is disfellowshipped and then it's them walking alone in the rain.
Yeah. And,
a more powerful metaphor for how abandoned you get.
Yeah. When I got home and I dried myself off, I thought, you know what? This is it. I am not ever in my life going to listen to another elder, to another Jehovah's Witness. They can preach what they want. They can believe what they want. It's not for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the vacuum I was talking about is I lost all my friends that I had in the religion. I had no friends outside of the religion.
Yep.
I don't know whether people know what Broken Hill's like to live in, but it's not the biggest place to... Everyone knows your business.
It's kind of very rural, small town.
Yes, well, it was then at those days. I don't know what it's like now, but in those days it was. So I was just left with this vacuum and emptiness. After thinking about it for a while, I thought, I'm going to go back to the city. I'm going to get myself out of I can't stay here. Everyone knows me. Everyone knows I'm gay. Everyone knows I'm kicked out of the religion. This is not for me. So I went and started afresh in Adelaide. I moved back to the city, but I moved to Adelaide. And this is probably the hardest part of my life. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this, but it gives you an insight to what's made me a person today. I'm just going to simply say that I was on the streets for a long, long time. And I'm talking 4 to 6 years.
Wow.
Because I had my money from when I was working in Broken Hill, but that ran out.
Yeah.
So I just had my material possessions. Where I was staying in Adelaide, the money ran out, so I couldn't stay. So I'm just out on the streets now. I have no money. The few material possessions I had were stolen instantly because I was out on the street, and that's all. They were a bit streetwiser than what I was. So I had nothing, absolutely nothing. The clothes I was wearing, that was it. No money, no food, no nothing. It's a very, very messy story, this part of my life. In this process, men would come along, casing out young boys. Not being any the wiser, they would offer you a shower to get clean, and they might even buy you a set of clothes or something, a meal, whatever. But that wasn't their ultimate motive.
You were absolutely being taken advantage of.
Absolutely. Yeah. And through that process, I got raped. And not raped once, raped numerous times. Because this was their reward for helping me out. That threw a whole new context of my life. Again, I was so naive because I'd been so brainwashed. I couldn't think for myself. I had to go through these horrific experiences to learn. This is not right.
And like religion just doesn't prepare you for the outside
There is
world.
no life skills, preparation, nothing. And, these skills are totally inappropriate for their religion, you know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I fell for we'll give you a shower and a meal.
Yeah.
Because at that time, that was probably the most important thing in my life, to go and have a shower and have a meal. Yes, that would be really great.
Absolutely.
So people say, well, why did you even put yourself in that situation?
What choice did you have?
There's not a lot of choice.
What
There's
choice
not
did you
a lot
have?
of choice.
It's just victim blaming.
So I drifted through these stages of being on the street, maybe for a few days being in someone's home, getting raped. Didn't like this, so I'd go back out in the street, wait for the next person. By the third, fourth time that started happening, I went, no thanks, I'll just stay out on the street. And it just took a big landslide downwards from that point, where eventually I was found by a social worker in the gutter. That was my life, in the gutter, because I had nothing else. From that moment of when the social worker found me, started to get my life back together again.
Good on you.
And this is where the whole story just does a big turnaround to where I am now, from being in the gutter to being able to tell this story. And I give myself great credit.
As you should.
For doing it, for surviving, for starters.
Yeah.
And standing on my own 2 feet and to where I am now.
We hope you're enjoying Recovering from Religion Stories Australia. We'll be right back after a word from the founder of RFR Australia, sharing who we are, what we do, the resources we offer, and how you can be part of it.
Hi, I'm Sherry D'Souza, International Board Member and founder of the Australian-New Zealand arm of Recovering from Religion, and I want to take a moment to tell you about the vital work that we do. Recovering from Religion Australia is dedicated to supporting individuals who are transitioning away from religious belief. We understand that this journey can be both empowering and challenging, and we're here to provide compassionate support and resources every step of the way. We offer a range of resources to assist you. Our website is a valuable hub where you can find information and access to our services. For immediate assistance, we have a confidential web chat feature and a dedicated phone line. Details of that are in the description below. In addition to these resources, we offer both in-person and virtual support groups where you can connect with others who understand your experiences. What I'm particularly proud of is our women's support group, which provides a safe and supportive space specifically for women navigating this transition. To join any of our support groups, including the women's group, please visit our website or contact us via the web chat or phone. Our mission is to ensure that no one has to go through this journey alone. We're committed to providing the guidance and community support that you need to heal and thrive. Thank you for listening and supporting our mission. Together we can build a network of support and create a space where everyone can find their path to freedom and fulfillment.
And now, back to Recovering from Religion Stories Australia.
And this is where the whole story just does a big, big turnaround to where I am now, from being in the gutter to being able to tell this story. And I give myself great credit.
As you should.
For doing it, for surviving for starters.
Yeah.
And standing on my own 2 feet and to where I am now. So, social worker, she helped me speak to a psychologist, a psychiatrist. I had all sorts of counselling. She was the one person, or the very first person, to say to me, Mark, it's okay to be gay. Now all of a sudden, because I've had this indoctrination of, no, it's not to be okay to be gay. I had this one person that said, it's okay to be gay. That changed my life. That changed my life immensely. And I don't even know where I have found the strength within myself to get out of this, but I did. I had all the sorts of counselling. I was able to start getting, I started off with voluntary work just to get into society.
Absolutely.
From there, I was offered an opportunity to do some work. But because Adelaide wasn't the happiest of memories for me, I decided to go back to Brisbane. And I spoke to my brother. And I'm only bringing my brother into it now because from the time I left home, he was younger than me.
Yes.
So he was being indoctrinated where you're not to speak to your brother. He's decided to leave the religion. That's his call.
Yep.
And now he's been kicked out of the religion.
Yep.
You're not to be able to talk to him.
Yep.
You know, there's all of this that goes on. But anyway, he chose to leave the religion. And I contacted him and I said, I would really like to come back to him. He said, well, come and live with me for a while.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So that was a little moment for me that after all of these years, I was able to have some family.
That's lovely.
He didn't greatly approve of my sexuality.
Yeah.
And that was, we had our moments.
Yeah.
And that was, again, because of the brainwashing. But I came back to Brisbane and I got myself work, trying to lead into now where I started working for Department of Defence.
Oh, wow.
Before we go there, I'm just hoping we could slow down a bit and reflect just slightly on 2 points before we move on. I'm seeing so many moments as you're sharing your story, and I'm not wanting to interrupt, but just to reflect on what you're saying and the magnitude of it, of what you've been through, and just how incredible it is. So there were 2 things that I wrote down here that I just wanted to reflect on briefly. The first is, I find it deeply inspirational how your story is centered around learning to stand up for yourself. Because as a child, you were a victim, you were helpless, and as we pointed out, the people around you failed to protect you in the way that they should. And as you grew up, it was a defining process for you to actually, as you put it, learn to stand on your own 2 feet, or just stand up for yourself and say, I will no longer participate in this abusive family. I will no longer participate in this abusive religion. Even if I have nothing, that's the choice that I'm heading toward. Of course, hopefully life could be better for people who leave religion. We hope that they get the help that they need. So that was the first thing that I said. I find it deeply inspirational how this story centers around that powerful growing up and standing up for yourself. And then the second thing that I wrote here is, in a sense, it sounds to me like that social worker was the first person to actually show you love, something resembling love, which is an actual care for your needs and a ministering to your needs. Actually, probably it might have been your first experience in your life to talk with someone who was actually trying to take on board your state of mind, what you're going through, what's hurting or what's difficult or what your needs are, what you're feeling, and then actually try to work with you to navigate those through to a place of better well-being, where everybody else was an agenda, right? Everybody else's agenda was Jehovah and read the Bible and all that rubbish, right? Whereas the social worker, her agenda was Mark's well-being. And that must have been a phenomenal transition for you to actually experience that. I could tell that you were getting emotional when you mentioned the social worker, because that might well have been your first experience of someone actually caring.
Yes, I'm going to pick you up. It was caring, not love.
Yeah.
It was because I really, even to this day, I still question what love is. That's just a personal thing I deal with every day. But yeah, it was this one person that actually, okay, so this is you, Mark. How can we help you? Not bash you to death, not put you under stress, not put you under coerce, no brainwashing. How can we help you and help you move forward?
Yeah.
The other thing I'd like to say about your first point is that we're talking over 40 years ago now. In my day, when I left the religion, there was absolutely no support whatsoever. For anyone that is listening now and in the future, if you're an ex-JW, regardless of whether you're gay or not, there is support out there now for you. And that is the huge, huge difference. I talked about the vacuum.
Yes.
Because that was it. I had nothing.
Yes.
No friends, no help, no family, no money, no job, all this sort of thing. Wow. So you're right, though.
Yeah, no,
you picked up on very well there.
Maybe I should say, just to clarify, I use the word love in a more parental sense. Like an ideal parent is supposed to be caring for you and ministering to your needs. I don't mean it in a romantic sense.
No.
I guess the other thing as well is like, regardless of what word it is, that social worker was like not a hypocrite saying one thing and doing another. That was a person who's actually trying to like do some good in the world.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Yeah.
No hypocrisy about it. Genuinely interested in how did you get yourself in this situation? How do we get you out of it?
Yeah. And like, again, not this is what's wrong with you.
Yes.
Let me like bash you into this new form, this is you should be the ideal Christian or whatever, and I'm going to like force you to conform to that. But what you were saying, like, well, how can we help you? And it looks like it worked.
Absolutely. I'll just quickly say, compare this. You've just heard me talk about the social worker.
Yep.
There was a time when I rang my father out of just sheer desperation, God knows why, but I rang out of sheer desperation. I said, Dad, I have no money. Can you please lend me some money?
Yeah.
And his response was, bearing in mind that he's an elder, nice Jehovah's Witness, whatever, his response was, come back to Jehovah and you can have all the meals that you like.
Yeah, everything is
conditional.
There's strings attached.
Yep, always strings attached. And it always comes back to, has to be with God and all this sort of stuff.
Come back to the house where, if I don't like how things are going, I'll beat you up again and subject yourself to exactly what I say, all that stuff.
You wouldn't be in the situation if you stayed at home and served Jehovah. Really?
This really, really bugs me because that, exactly what you just said, comes up a lot, where it's like, people kind of, when I was still in, there was this weird, I want to be fair here, but there was this weird kind of satisfaction people sometimes got from if people left and their lives sort of,
fell apart.
Well, just goes to show you, doesn't it?
Yes.
This kind of weird kind of like there's a sort of cruel kind of satisfaction there. Yeah. And that really annoys me because as I said before, the lives often fall apart because turns out losing your religion is actually a tremendously difficult thing in the first place. It's like an incredibly, it's already this massive crisis you have to go through, having to rethink, do I believe in God? Do I believe in Jehovah? Do I believe in the Bible? You've got to figure out all this stuff. And throughout that whole thing, you've had your entire support network cut off. Your family don't talk to you anymore. All your friends don't talk to you anymore. You're massively shamed. The process leading up to you getting kicked out is really quite traumatic. These 20 questions and being stalked and grilled. So it's like, and then they're like, is it, and you have been brainwashed from being a kid to have no skills to sort of succeed in the world outside, because it's just put all your faith in Jehovah, put all your trust in Jehovah, he'll take care of everything. And then, like, they have the goal to turn around and be like, oh, well, you see what happens when people leave Jehovah. It's like, no.
It's very smug, isn't it?
It is very smug. And I guess when you look at my lifestyle, my life, and how it's gone, I would have just supported their whole teaching, because their whole teaching says, if you leave Jehovah, or if you leave the religion, this is what's going to happen to you. Well, guess what? It did happen to me. What they don't teach is, you know what? You can get yourself out of that.
Yes.
And you can build yourself an own life where you can think for yourself and do whatever it is that you want to do for yourself through your life. So, yeah, I'm happy with the way it went. I went and got myself a job in defence, and that's probably where I've spent the huge chunk of my adult life. I was in defence for 28 years.
Wow.
Now, when I say I was in defence, I was not a military person.
Yep.
I was a civilian, but I had a very, very responsible job. And out of all of the story, my life helped me in my job.
Yeah.
Because, and I'll tell you what I did was, if you required a security clearance, you had to fill out a pack. And as part of the security clearance process, some people require an interview. That's where I would come in.
Yep.
I used to interview people. So we would be making decisions about people's lives. Now, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness that's going to say, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why did you do that?
Yeah.
But at least I can have the compassion
Yeah.
to say, okay, so you've done that.
Yep.
That's part of your life, just like what I've done in my life.
Yep.
What have you done to change that? Where do you go for the future, etc.
Yeah.
So you can assess whether they're suitable to hold a security clearance. Now, some people aren't. They just keep on practicing the same things over and over and again.
Too much of a security risk kind of
Yes.
thing. Yeah.
And that's the decisions we had to make. But it made me a very, very good interviewer,
Yeah.
because I could sit there and I could listen to your story,
Yep.
not even disclose anything that I've gone through in my life,
Yep.
but I could understand and have compassion why you might have done something that's not approved in general life.
Yes.
And that's where, another benefit. I'm a person that has tried very, very hard to go, okay, this is what's happened to me. I can't change that. What can I learn and make it into a positive? And that's what's made me a person now. I have to bring this in now because everyone knows I have this one line, and it's simply this: love from the heart, not from the scriptures.
I love that catchphrase.
Everyone that knows me well knows that I have that one line, and that is what I have learnt out of life. Maybe today I still don't know what real love is, and I'm talking about real love. But what I learnt from the religion was not love.
Yes.
Definitely not love.
Yes.
What I learnt from the Bible, that was not love.
Yes.
What I have learnt is that what you do out of your own heart, make up your own decisions, and show your own compassion to other people, that is a hell of a lot better than just quoting scriptures one after the other and saying, well, that's it. That's life. Like it or lump it.
And I totally understand. Yeah, love as a word is a really messy word. I think that probably most of us have run into the little fun fact that in other languages there's 4 or 5 different words that will translate to love, because there's different types of love and all that sort of stuff. I mean, even saying types of love, but the words that you come back to often is compassion and I don't know, you can tell me it really feels like you have a good sense of empathy, which is probably what made you such a good interviewer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Being able to put people at ease, sort of that's the good skill that probably made you such a good interviewer, being able that people didn't think that they were talking to someone like your dad who was about to come down on them like a ton of bricks, but someone who's let's just talk about it.
Yep.
No judgment.
Yep.
Let's just talk about it. So, and that's the skill that you need when people maybe have things that they need to disclose that they're maybe a little embarrassed about, is you need someone who can put you at ease and make you feel like you're not going to get in trouble. So yeah, all those qualities are kind of, those are all really important. Those are very real. And and whereas the word love has been weaponized by many religions, including Jehovah's Witnesses, as this, like, it's a very weaponized word. It's a very loaded word, like, there's this saying that like, disfellowshipping is a loving arrangement.
Yes.
So it's no wonder that like the word is like a word that, it's no wonder that this like the word love is a word that you're like, I don't even
loaded word.
A very loaded word. I don't even know what, but yeah, what's really nice is what you have discovered, whether or not you want to use the word love for it or not, what you have discovered, though, is very real. The idea of real compassion, the idea of real empathy and respect and, understanding people and that kind of thing.
Yep. One thing I was able to learn very well was to be able to put myself in other people's shoes.
Yes.
That is a hard skill to do.
A lot of people do not have it.
No.
It's a rare skill.
Yep. And, even, do I do it 100%? No, I don't. Because I haven't experienced a lot of things in life.
Absolutely.
But geez, I have experienced a hell of a lot of things in life. And, you can, in many, many ways, put yourself in other people's shoes and feel for them that, okay, this is what you did. This is why you did it. We all have our own reasons why we do things in life, whether it be for good or for bad. It was what we did at the time and maybe thought it was the best and only solution that we had. And that's what applies to my life, because I didn't have guidance, I didn't have help. Yeah, I had the Bible teachings. You talk about love, and I don't even remember it now off by heart, but I remember that one scripture in Corinthians, I think it was in Corinthians, where it was this whole paragraph about it, love is, love is, love is, love is, love is. And I look, I think about that now and go, you know what, how way off the mark really that is, because that's love according to religion.
Yes.
Not from the heart.
Yes.
Not from the heart.
Yes.
And that's where I had the big conflict.
Yeah.
Can I just say too, what I haven't brought into this whole conversation is, and I'm going right back to childhood.
Yes.
And that scripture just reminded me of it, is that growing up, listening to all of these scriptures and all the teachings, I just didn't believe it.
Yeah.
I truly didn't believe it. And one of the reasons I used to get into trouble so much was for asking questions.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how many questions I asked about Noah's Ark, the logistics of Noah's Ark. I don't want to have a long lecture about that. But the whole lecture of how did they survive for 40 days? Well, it was more than 40 days. How did they survive in this with only 2 animals of each, and, the food supplies, no freezers, no... there's a whole lot of logistical stuff that we think about. Well, how did they do it? Yeah. And their one simple answer always was, Jehovah looked after them. and where I had the problem with those, so why is it good enough for Jehovah to look after them? But here I am praying for this one thing to go away in my life, and it never happened.
Nothing's happening.
Yep. It never happened. And I just lost the faith. I never ever had the faith to just accept all of these things that they were telling and pumping week after week. So that also had an influence on me. The other thing, Jehovah's Witnesses, in my time, believed that the world was going to come to an end in 1975.
Oh, that's such an interesting,
That was a big thing for Jehovah's Witnesses at the time. Early January 1976, we're sitting in our family warfares, in our family studies, and I said, why are we still here?
Yeah.
And Dad, he just looked at me with one of his filthiest looks. I can still see it today, and he's dead now, but I can still see it now. Why are you questioning Jehovah?
Wow.
Why are you questioning? Well, hang on. Armageddon was coming in 1975. It's now the beginning of 1976. I thought we would be in paradise by now, or dead at Armageddon. Yeah. Why are we still here? I thought I was asking a legitimate question. Yeah. That was probably one of the worst bashings I ever got in my life. Oh, no. How dare you question Jehovah? Yeah. And he just went on and on and on, and for a good hour he was, how dare you, how dare you. And even when it was all over and the house was quiet, he was just out in the lounge room. I cannot believe my son is questioning Jehovah's, It was just immense, that moment in life. And, why did I run away from home?
Absolutely. No, that's fascinating. And Because like it's actually really interesting when you end up talking to people. A lot of people will be like, well, when I was a kid, I did have a lot of questions. And like, you know, and then like, you know, what happens later can be kind of complicated. But like, as you say, there are certain things that sort of don't add up when you're a kid.
Yes.
And especially like for yourself, because like, you know, it was all about getting the right question for your dad and his with the poised rod, you know, get the question right. It's like it's, you know, that like it can easily then eventually sort of take a back seat of like, you know, what I believe and what isn't. It's like I just need to think of the right answer so I don't get a bashing kind of thing.
So yeah,
That's
you,
how I
you
live
become less
every
curious.
day of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like your curiosity slows down and stops. You stop asking
You
questions.
get and exactly like the curiosity. You get what's the opposite of rewarded? Punished, I guess.
Punished, yeah. You
If
get punished for being curious.
If your curiosity is punished, you ask an entirely legitimate question, not like Jehovah has failed, just more a case of, hey, why are we still here? I thought we had this stuff figured out. And your dad, you know, just punishes
flying
that.
into a rage.
You know?
Yep.
Like, yeah, that's kind of, it shuts down that whole kind of, that whole line of thought.
Another simple example was the whole creation thing. So God created Adam out of the dust of the earth and then saw that he was lonely and so wanted to create a woman. The Bible says she was created because he took a rib. So I just asked this question, why wasn't Eve created out of the dust of the earth like Adam? Why did God have to take a rib?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you would have thought I was asking, I don't know. You know, that was why are you questioning what God, you know?
And again, that's a legitimate question. And again, your father like punishes that legitimate question. Yeah. And so,
It's an innocent question too.
Yeah, completely.
Like you can see how your childlike innocence is being punished again and again and again.
And it sounds like also maybe like your dad didn't have any answers for these questions. So like he didn't have a good answer for you.
None of them have any answers to the questions, and I can verify that. Their one answer is leave it to Jehovah.
Yeah.
He will look after them. He will fix. He will, you know, they just keep plugging away that brainwashing line. He will fix, you know. I mean, I don't want to get into why I don't believe in the religion sort of thing, but there are many, many things. And the one thing I cannot ever comprehend is why God created death and punishes the whole world, the whole future to come on the basis of one lady talking to a snake.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm still having trouble getting my head around talking to a snake.
Yep.
But this one woman who ate a piece of fruit.
Yep.
And the whole humankind have to pay the price for that.
Yeah.
I just don't see the logic. If I had a son and he did something wrong, I'm not going to say, right, because you did that now, your brothers, your sisters, your grandparents, they're all going to be paying.
All that stuff.
Yeah, to me, I could never, ever comprehend that. And I still don't today as an adult.
Yes.
Because it's nonsense.
It's what makes me where I am now. And I will admit, I'm very much an atheist. If people haven't guessed that by now, I am an atheist. And because no one has ever proved any different from me. I've walked up to the Jehovah's Witnesses now out in the street and I'll say, I'll give you 15 minutes to make me believe what you believe in and turn me around from being an atheist. And they can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you say to them, do it without the Bible, that makes it even harder for them because they can't do it.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
It's amazing. You've touched on a number of topics. I just want to again reflect back. So the first is so-called thought-terminating cliches. So in Stephen Hassan's work on cults, he speaks about thought-terminating cliches, which is a single sentence that people wheel out the moment they don't have an answer to something.
Leave it to Jehovah.
Yeah.
Throw your burden on Jehovah, pray, and he'll make it all go away.
Other religions might use ones like God works in mysterious ways, or God's ways are not our ways, something like that. You know.
Whatever it is, the goal of that sentence is to make you stop thinking, like stop that line of inquiry.
Yeah.
And then the second point we're sort of dwelling on is how religion harms people intellectually. So at Recovering from Religion, we have this broad position that religion is harmful, at least can be harmful. And that should come as no surprise to any of us. And one of the ways that religion is harmful is intellectually. Through its mechanisms of control and indoctrination. It stifles curiosity. It stifles people's questioning and healthy, legitimate ways of understanding the world, and it punishes people for that. And it has a profound impact on both individuals and society in those ways by stifling us intellectually.
You're right.
Yeah.
You are right.
So, you've had it sounds like you've had a really fulfilling career in defense that you really enjoyed. Like, you wouldn't have stayed so long, if you didn't, like if you hadn't enjoyed, the whole thing.
Well, unfortunately, I got retired early on medical grounds because I got run over by a car.
Oh my goodness!
This was the ultimate. This was the ultimate out in the real world in 2015. Unfortunately, there were two things in 2015. I got very sick.
Yes.
Which is now being diagnosed and addressed.
Yes.
But also in October 2015, I got run over by a car on a pedestrian crossing on my way to work. And the result of that now is I have permanent brain damage.
Ouch.
And so that's another challenge I've had in life to deal with. But because I can make my own decisions,
yes,
I can even question doctors and say, well, if I do this, does it have consequence? And they listen. They don't just sort of sit there and go, well, no.
How dare you question the medical?
Exactly right. But look, that's another challenge I've had in life, and there's no denying it. And unfortunately, it terminated my career in defence. I've actually now been retired for quite some time. But the positive, again, out of getting run over by a car is that I got a compensation payout.
Very nice.
And I have been able to travel. And
we are the beneficiaries of your travelling right
now. You are.
You
I have travelled places in the world now that have just made me so happy. It's become a real passion for me. Unfortunately, that bucket of money is now starting to run out.
Yeah.
But the places I've been to, I'm grateful for because I probably would never, ever have had that opportunity. Certainly not in the religion, because the only place to travel in the religion is paradise. They were all still waiting for.
All that extra money should probably go into the contribution box.
Oh, probably too. Yeah. Yes.
No money for expensive travel.
No, absolutely not. So no, I have had some really extensive travel now that I've absolutely enjoyed and feel privileged in many ways. As much as the way the circumstances that I got that money were not pleasant.
Yeah.
I'm happy that I've been there. So I turned a negative into another positive, and I will not let anything beat me. And I guess that's where I come from these days. If you knock me down, okay, it might be a temporary down, but I will get up again.
Yeah.
And I will fight my way out of it and move forward. I'm not a person that goes, poor me. Okay, I've talked about things in life which I wouldn't certainly want to inflict on any other people, but we all have our individual battles.
Yeah.
And I say to people that listen to this in the future, it may not look good now, and you are going through your struggles, and for all the gay people in the JW religion, you will struggle even when you get out. But trust me, for your own happiness, it's so worth it. For your eventual happiness, it's so worth it. You don't need to be trodden on by homophobic Jehovah's Witnesses who will just never even try and understand where you're coming from. So it will always be a struggle, but there's support out there for you. And if you're listening to this at some stage, I hope that I have shown you that you can come out the other side in a positive way.
That's beautiful, Mark.
I speak from the heart. Love from the heart and not from the scriptures.
And speak from the heart and not from the scriptures.
Yeah. You're such a resilient person to come through all of this stuff.
I am, and I still wonder where it all came from. I don't know where it all came from. Maybe that one moment in life when an axe was thrown at me. Do I really have to put up with that? No, I don't. Maybe just observing all the hypocrisy in the religion. Do I have to put up with that? No, I don't. And, life goes on, whether in the religion or out of the religion, making your own decisions or just living by their decisions. We all have some sort of choice in life. Maybe not the perfect choice, but we have choices that we can make for ourselves. And I've always said you can either always play victim, poor me, or go and do something positive for yourself and go and live for yourself.
Yeah. So I think we can safely say that while obviously you've been through some very tough times, you have no regrets from leaving the religion.
Oh, absolutely not. I totally
the
agree.
safest question Jonathan could possibly ask.
Here's the flag, Mark, fall for it. No. All honesty, one of the biggest things about the JW religion is shunning.
Yes.
If you leave the religion. You use the words regrets. I'm even prepared to put up with all of that shunning.
Yep.
And I've done it for 40 years. My parents are not alive anymore.
Yep.
But I was prepared to put up with all of that shunning just to be happy for myself.
Yeah.
So absolutely no regrets. I do have a regret that I never had a proper family life.
Yeah.
If that is one sore point that I look back in my life,
Yeah.
I go, what are families like really?
Yeah.
Because I never had it.
Yeah.
But I haven't let that control my life 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've broken out of that and gone, okay, if that's what you believe in, that you're entitled to believe in that, I don't. And I'm just not going to abide by your practices. For me now to turn around and shun someone just because they don't comply with a religion is so totally wrong. So absolutely no regrets whatsoever of leaving the religion, getting kicked out of the religion, even getting bashed for not knowing a scripture because it's made me a better person.
Yep. Yeah.
Made me a better person.
That is very inspiring, Mark.
I hope so.
Very
Because
inspiring.
I do speak from the heart, and I do speak, what's the word? Heart on the sleeves type stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But, this is a realistic of my life and what I experienced, and
warts and all, genuine.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I go, you can make it out on the other side with the right help. Yeah. And trust me, people, you have a lot more help than I ever had
Yeah,
these days
absolutely.
than what I had 40 years ago.
Absolutely. It's like, I think, every successive generation, I think, sort of looks back and goes, oh my God, what we have now in comparison to what we had back then, there was like even like, like pre-internet, like you couldn't find other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, kind of thing.
Well, can I just say about internet?
Yes.
When I was in the religion and the internet was starting to being developed, the internet was Satan's world. We're not to have anything to do with that because that's Satan's world. Well, folks, if you look at how much Jehovah's Witnesses use the internet these days and have their whole website of jw.org
Yeah, they've changed their tune on that one, haven't they?
in Satan's world,
If you can't beat them, join
can I
them.
just go back to that word of hypocrisy?
Yeah.
And this is what I've seen from religion all my life, is the hypocrisy, the flip-flopping.
Actually, the 1975 thing as well. So that one was fascinating to me. So it's obviously before my time. I was born in 88. But it came up when I was still in the religion. It's interesting. And probably you were still fairly young sort of during the sort of 1975.
Teenage years,
Yeah. So, like, it's interesting. So I remember I was having this one conversation and someone mentioned something like with these two sisters, and one sister said one was an older sister, and she was the wife of an elder who was visiting and talking in the congregation. So like very spiritual sister, this older sister. And so this sort of middle-aged sister said, 1975 thing, that's just a thing that people made up. Like, that's just a rumor people made up. And the older sister, the elder's wife, she said, "Oh no, I was there at the convention called Will You Survive 75?"
Yes. Yep.
Like she said, they 100%, they all but told us. They never 100% said the world will definitely end, but they were so like they were like 95% of the way there. They're like, oh, it's almost certainly we'll never see 1976.
Well, they had their special mathematical calculation, and I don't even want to go down this path because I used to have to know this off by heart.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
have forgotten. So there you go, Dad. After all of the bashings, it didn't work. But they had their mathematical calculation of 1914, blah 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 blah.
I just love
and
this-
it all ended in 1975. And
Yes.
now the witnesses very much try and
Oh,
deny that
that
ever
never
happened.
happened. Never
And,
happened.
Yeah, we did.
And yeah, it 100% happened. And in fact, it was really cool. The older sister, this elder's wife, she actually said, that's the one thing I still disagree with the society on. They 100% got it wrong and they should admit it. But this is the thing that we never see. Not from your dad, not from the family, not from the congregation, not from the leadership. They never say, hey guys, we straight up got this totally wrong and we're sorry. Like, they never do that. There was never an apology after 1975. Not once did they. In fact, if anything, they tried to turn it around saying, well, you guys probably took up what we said out of context.
Yeah. Too literally or
Yeah,
something.
And it just goes to show, again, comes back to the hypocrisy again.
Yep.
Like, claiming like everyone should be humble and everyone should admit their mistakes. But when it comes time for the leadership to be humble and admit their mistakes, it doesn't happen. So, you have an inspiring story, Mark, and I'm so glad now that we've been able to hear it all in order, because I've heard little snatches of it through the years, and I've been completely wrapped in attention
Thank you.
throughout all of
Thank
this. You're a very good storyteller. Maybe you should write it down one day.
Oh, that's been suggested to me many, many times that I should write it down. I don't know whether I would have the mental capacity
No,
now
that's
to
fair.
be able to do that.
That's fair. That's
But
fair.
There
could
are
al-
other ways, I guess, that we could do it, but
Hey,
it
yeah.
has been suggested to me that I do that one day.
Yeah, you could always record it as like a little oral
Yes.
story or something,
Yeah.
or a series of videos or something. Yeah, so we've definitely, I think, very safely covered that no regrets. And you've already given some really lovely thoughts to any gay people in the Jehovah's Witnesses or any other religion for that matter, which I found very moving. Are there any other thoughts that you have for maybe people who are trying to figure this stuff out themselves, or they're struggling, or even I'm trying to think of a good way to phrase this question.
That's okay. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Look, from the heart, all I can say to people is that leaving any religion, leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses, is going to be difficult. It comes with its complexities, especially like if you're a wife and you have a believing husband or vice versa. That's going to create issues. It doesn't matter which way you look at it. If you're gay in the religion, there's no place for you in the religion. And I have spoken as a gay person through this whole interview. There are other people, there are trans people in the religion that I feel so sorry for. The battle that they go through, hearing what they're hearing, knowing full well that there's no place for them. They can't go and talk to the elders.
And they're probably doing those same prayers that you did every
Yes,
night. Just
yes.
make me straight, just make me cis.
Yep, get me over this. You will go through your own personal battles as well if you choose to leave. But just please bear in mind that these days there is a lot more support than what I ever had. Seek that support. Seek professional advice. Don't just join a group and hope that you will survive by joining a group, because there is a specific XJW gay group, and people put their problems in there. What do you suggest? Which is great, but it's not always the perfect answer. The perfect answer is to go and seek professional help. See the psychiatrist, see the psychologist, get the counselling of how you can deal with your own issues. But there are groups and there are support people out there that will help you. So it's not all a dead end. And trust me, I think I'm living proof that you can come out on the other side.
Absolutely you are, Mark. Mark, it's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure doing it. I know I've had my moments, and you will always, with the baggage that I carry, you will always hit a raw nerve of my life. That's the way life is.
That is.
Totally okay.
This afternoon I will get up and I will move on to the next stage of my life, because that's the way I am. But it's good for people to hear my story and realise that it's not all crisis.
And we don't have to be fake and pretend like it was all roses.
No.
You know?
No.
We don't have to put on this smile and be like, it's the best life ever. You know?
No, that line.
You know.
It's also the worst life ever.
Exactly.
Trust me.
And because this is real. This
Yes.
is like from the heart.
Yes.
We've seen your whole story, all its ups and downs, and it's genuine.
Yeah. Unfortunately for the JWs, they look through life through their rosy biblical glasses. There's nothing outside of that. It's just rosy biblical. All you have to do is go to one of their assemblies and just stand there as an observer, and you will see how rosy and biblical it is. Because if you keep yourself totally separate from the rest of the world, you just stay within those four little walls of the JW religion and you deal with your own issues the best way you can, even though it may not be the right way.
Yeah.
Or what's good for you.
And like, so, you know, and just like reliant on that group. And then and it is possible. And it is good to have community, and it is possible though to stand on your own 2 feet,
Absolutely.
as like you have.
Yep. And can I just give one more piece of advice that's just popped into my head, which is so crucial? And I don't like using the word advice, but I'm going to make this suggestion to anyone that is thinking about leaving the religion. Under whatever circumstances you're making a decision to leave for, you do not, I emphasize, you do not have to account to the elders why you are leaving. You do not have to answer their questions. They have no power legally. Yeah, you know, a lot of people say, do I have to write a letter to say I don't even want to be associated with the JWs? That's your call if you want to do that, but you don't have to. You can just walk away and account to no one but yourself. And I think that's one of the really big things of being able to leave the Jehovah's Witness religion and making a life for yourself, because we're so trapped in that we're accountable to the elders. Well, legally, we're not. No one is. That is a rule they've made up within themselves, within their own religion. It's not legal. So you are not obliged to attend any of their so-called
judiciary meetings.
Thank you.
God,
I haven't used that word for many a years. I have not used that word for many a years. But you're not even obliged to attend their meetings. If they kick you out because you didn't attend, that legally is not right either. But that's the way their religion works. So it does come down to your own decisions. But I just wanted to make that point that you're not accountable to the elders in any way, as much as they angle and push and demand.
They try and make you do everything on their terms.
Yes.
And you don't have to. You can do things on your terms.
Exactly right.
That's
exactly right.
Honestly, Mark, that's a really good advice. And that's very true.
Yep. And I know when I had them in a spin, when I wouldn't start answering their questions and throwing all my left things, that made them really uncomfortable, because all of a sudden they didn't have the power.
They didn't have the control anymore.
No, I took that control right away from them. That's probably one of the best things I ever did for myself, to be able to do that. Whether it's the right or wrong thing, I'll leave that to people to decide for themselves, but it's what I chose to do for myself.
It's for you to decide, really. To continue with your point, it's actually no one else's right to decide whether that was a right or wrong decision for you. It's your decision. It's your life.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a very practical piece of advice.
Yep.
Yeah. I actually have something to reflect on that. Some Jehovah's Witnesses may be in slightly different circumstances where things are less abusive at home, but they're still in their teens and they're still involved in the religion, but they may or may not believe it, or they may be transitioning out of belief at present. And to continue your thoughts on doing things on your own terms, you can stay and just toe the line. You can say, I'm not going pioneering, or I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing that. And you don't have to be accountable for, you can continue to board at your parents' house if you're still 13, 14, 15 years old, but you
don't have to get baptized.
Yeah, you don't have to get baptized.
I did. Right? Mark did. We both don't recommend it.
Biggest mistake I ever made in my life. The biggest mistake I ever made in my life.
The reason I share that, and again, it admits that people's circumstances do vary, and some people will not have as extreme experiences as you. But to take examples, I'm aware of ex-Mormons or Mormons who've decided to just, they call it physically and mentally out. They just, I'm still going to hang around this place.
That's exactly what ex-Jehovah's call it as well.
Pimo,
physically in, mentally out.
Yeah.
Mentally checked out.
Yeah, and that's your choice. Like that's still living life on your terms. If you want to show up to the luncheon and, you know, have a lovely chat with people on Sunday because that's what you want to do, that's still engaging with the religion on your terms. Personally, that's not for me because I think it's just too toxic to hang around, but people have different experiences.
For a kid, obviously.
Depends on your age and your circumstances.
You know, you can, well, it's interesting, like, I think even a lesson from your experience where you got to a point, the axe, and you were like, right, time to start planning the exit.
Yes. The flip side to that is touching on what you said, is that many Jehovah's Witnesses, if they're thinking about leaving, one of their biggest fears about leaving is, I'm going to lose my family. And I fully understand that.
Yeah.
I fully understand that. And they get caught in this world of, I want to be happy for myself, but I don't want to lose my family. And that is a tough decision to make for yourself. And this is why I say you will still struggle with different things for your own circumstances, but being out is definitely better than being in, I can assure you.
Every time Saturday morning rolls around and I don't have to go out on ministry, it's just such a nice feeling. Like, roll over and hit the snooze button and go back to sleep.
Yes, or not have to have family warfare night. Oh, God. I remember the first time I left home and thought, it's Monday night and I don't have to attend family warfare night. You know, and my place was so quiet and the neighbours couldn't hear what was going on 3 doors down in our home. And I'm going, this is bliss. This is bliss.
Wow.
But yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, Mark, since you had so much conflict and anxiety in your home, you must enjoy peace and quiet.
You've got me summed up very well as well. I am very much an independent person. I mean, I've travelled the world by myself, and many people go, how can you do that? And I have. I've managed. Yes, there are times I love coming together with other people, but there are other times, I do treasure my peace and quiet very much, so, and the freedom, the independence. That's what it's made me as a person now. Unfortunately, it's probably made me way too much independent. You know, I've gone from one extreme way to the other end, but I'm not going to say that that's wrong. That's just the way I am now.
That's the way you want to live your
and
life.
happy. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I can live with my own company. I don't have to listen to religion. I don't have to listen to screaming fathers. I'm not getting bashed for it. There's not much more in life I want.
And like, if you do one day want to, like, I don't know, join a tennis club or something, get involved in some kind of community, you get to do it on your terms.
Absolutely. And I can still walk away from that and still have my own independence.
Exactly.
Yes.
Have those healthy boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, all through it, I can make my own decisions. I don't have to be told or forced or brainwashed, even worse.
I love that. Yeah, the freedom of mind that you're demonstrating to us in the way that you think. I'm really inspired by that. And I think many people coming out of religion need a really solid dose of that into their life, like how to make your own decisions, how to establish boundaries, how to say no when other people don't have a right to push you.
Absolutely.
And you don't need to feel anxious.
Yeah.
If someone gets angry with you, you don't have to feel anxious about that. That's their problem.
Absolutely.
That's their emotion.
I will just say it doesn't happen overnight. This is the struggle I'm talking about. You know, even now there are times where you've sort of seen me get a bit emotional, even in this interview, because it's baggage. It's always part of you. I know there's women out there that the minute they hear a clap of thunder, Armageddon. You know, that's the first thing that comes to their head. That's a really shame. It's just not a shame. It's not the word I'm looking for. It's sad. That's the way they have to live their lives. That a clap of thunder is instant thought is not a storm or a bad storm. It's Armageddon. And that's what the religion does to you. It spooks your life.
And in the real world, we don't have like these magical fairy tale, like, you know, and then I found the truth and everything was perfect, and or you know, then we'll be in paradise and everything will be perfect. The magic wand will be waved and everything will be perfect. In the real world, as you say, this stuff it follows you, and it's not about having a perfect life. What even would a perfect life being? It's having a life that's on your terms, and also a life in which you're happy with, you know, the decisions that you've made and the things that you have. You know, that's like, in life there are very rarely ever fairy tale solutions to things.
If I can just jokingly say to people, if they're listening to this, you've heard me talk about the way I've questioned religion in this earth. if you really seriously want to get to know me well, have a think about the questions I want to ask about their paradise earth that I question big time about what their paradise world is going to be like. I'm happy to be approached at any time to talk about that one.
Wow, great.
All right.
Well, as we're wrapping up, I wrote down a few bullet points, if you wouldn't mind. I'm reflecting back on your story, really. Okay. I'm just sharing how this has impacted. So, the first thing I wrote here is an idea for anyone listening to this interview. If you want a takeaway question for yourself, it would be, how can I, with courage and compassion, stand up for myself today? So because you mentioned taking things one day at a time, there have been chapters of your life where you very much were in the present moment, even one meal at a time. You had to take them, right? But that's what I took from your story, is that you learned to stand up for yourself. So that's the succinct phrase. How can I, with courage and compassion, stand up for myself today? And I also wanted to say that I really appreciated that you've made it really clear to us that it's important to you to not see yourself as just a victim. Surely there were chapters of your life where it was very okay and appropriate to feel sadly about what happened to you. All of us have had bad things happen to us, and you more than many others. And surely there were times when you felt sad and you may need to cry, or you may need to mourn or grieve the loss of things. But you kept showing up every day to your life. That's what I really admire about your story, is you kept showing up every day. And you said, okay, this is a new day, and this is a new day, and this is a new day. Yep. And now, what am I going to do today?
I would just simply say you can be a victim, but don't be a victim all your life.
Not long-term. Love that. Yeah, not long-term.
You're not just a victim.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. You don't have to keep refreshing your victim status every day. It's okay. I mean, again, because we don't want to be invalidating for instances where people have genuinely been hurt and they want to complain with genuine complaints.
Yeah.
That's okay, but if you play that victim role day in, day out, that's where you will always stay. You won't move forward. You won't get over the issues, whatever.
So when you're in that frame of mind of sort of grieving or mourning or sadness about what's happened to you, that's totally appropriate for that time. But the day may come, or probably will come, when that won't be functional for your life any longer.
Yeah.
And then at that point, you keep showing up and you're like, okay, what am I going to do today? Like, yes, those bad things happened to me, but now I'm going to look for a job, or now I'm going to look for the next rental, or I'm going to seek out some support from a social worker, or whatever it is.
Figure out which next holiday to go on.
Or what can I do? What can I do to be positive?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. What can I be grateful for? I love the sun.
What can I change? Today. What can I learn out of this to make it into a positive?
And that's so wonderful, by the way, how grateful you are, even though like you've undergone some really awful stuff. You're great. Like you've got a lot of. It's really inspiring to see that you really you put a lot of effort into like being grateful for the stuff that went well and turning it into the positive, as you said.
Turning it into a positive. I love that. Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you again, Mark.
My pleasure.
It's been lovely, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your time here in Perth.
I will.
We'll be catching up for dinner a little bit later, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your travels. And if we're ever in Adelaide, are you still in Adelaide?
No, Brisbane now.
No, see, I had to call back to the fact that Sean got it wrong, so I got it wrong on purpose.
Okay. As you know, I've just travelled from Darwin to Adelaide.
That's what it is.
Let's just blame the fact that you're all over the place. So you're from everywhere.
Exactly. And then if we're ever in Brisbane, we'll have to catch up for some coffee.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Love it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for your privilege.
Thanks for joining us today for RFR Stories Australia. We hope you enjoyed the program. We'd like to let you know about a number of resources that Recovering from Religion has to support you through your journey. On our website, recoveringfromreligion.org, you'll find 1. A resources tab, which contains an entire library of resources and links covering a wide range of relevant topics. 2. Other online media, including a blog, other podcasts, and RFRX talks. 3. A helpline that is available 24/7, both through phone call or live chat, where you can talk with someone supportive in real time in a time of crisis, or if you simply want to connect with someone who will understand with empathy. 4. Support groups which run both online and in person in certain locations around the world. And 5. A directory of therapists who have been vetted and offer only therapeutic services using secular methods. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.